it? December 30th? 2025, we are in the fourth year, and this is day 310 since the start of the full-scale invasion. Welcome. I greet you. For the daily situation report, in today's report, we see the deployment of Orishnik missiles on the NATO eastern flank and mutual drone attacks on key targets. And the main topic, which I already touched on yesterday, is the alleged attack on Putin's residence, as well as, of course, much more. But first, the final hours of the donation campaign are underway. Thank you to all donors and participants who, once again, are making a big contribution to saving lives. We've reached 91.21 of the current PayPal goal, while many others have also donated via bank transfer. I promised to add 4 cents per new subscriber and 10 extra cents for each since Christmas, plus my own donation. At campaign start, there were 72,929 subscribers. At Christmas, 73,217. Now 73,403. That's 288 subscribers before Christmas and 186 after. So up to today, that's 30.12 euros in numbers. So far on top, it's a bit of a shame compared to my own donation, of course. Over almost 30 days, about as many new subscribers joined as used to in 3 or 4 days. And to be honest, I was expecting a bit more, which would have resulted in a larger amount in addition to my private donation. But so be it. I think we're optimistic that we'll reach the goal by New Year's. So by the end of the donation campaign period. Belarusian media released a video claiming the Russian Orishnik weapon system is already stationed in Belarus. First of all, it's a media station. All representations from Belarusian or Russia-friendly channels, including one from the Russian Ministry of Defense. So if the redeployment is confirmed, it would have both operational and political significance. Belarus would be upgraded as an additional forward area for Russian missile systems. The warning signs for neighboring states and Ukraine would decrease, allowing Moscow to further escalate its threats toward NATO's eastern flank and northern Ukraine. Regardless of whether the system is actually deployed in the short term or even usable at all, and hopefully doesn't explode in orbit again, like we've seen with recent rocket launches. Most Orishnik launches we've seen in the past year have either exploded on the ground at launch or in the air. With 2 guarantees, only Ukraine, our neighbor, is affected, so I don't see much danger. We saw this before. Much of the Orishniks use recycled 1970s parts. Putin claims the part is completely new and now in serial production, but he has made this claim twice in the past 5 years. But if you look at the components, it's probably something they built back in the Soviet Union and then let rust away in some warehouse, until they dug it up again and are now trying to remarket it. Snow has now fallen on the ruins of Kupiansk. In the eastern part of the city, a Russian soldier was geolocated. The drone is also Russian, and the soldier is waving at it, so there's no danger coming from it. It's impossible to know when the video was filmed. The Russians might have recorded it 2 months ago and released it today. We see snow that hasn't been there long, so I estimate the video is 3 to 4 days old. If I had to guess, I'd say the Russians advanced somewhere near Ostgil and regrouped somewhere around here. As far as I know, the eastern part is also being held by a single brigade, because the others were still busy back then trying to push the Russians out of the city. And they're still busy right now, roughly here in the center, fighting off scattered Russian units, or in the best case, capturing them. As stated yesterday, the Russians have increased pressure at Munarad, adding the dark red area today. Nothing else has changed here. Territorial gains are currently quite scarce, no matter on which side. We only see minimal territorial changes per day, if we see any at all. We already talked about this yesterday. I mentioned it in the situation report, and today our media are also reporting about it. Of course, I have to add something. It's about the alleged drone attack on Putin's residence. During the talks between Trump and Zelensky, in connection with the alleged drone attack on Putin's residence, a remarkable pattern emerges. Ladies and gentlemen, shortly after the phone call with Putin, so before the conversation with Zelensky, Trump publicly stated that the Russian president wanted Ukraine to be successful. A statement that is already confusing in itself and rhetorically puts Putin in the role of a benevolent actor. Here is Zelensky's reaction during Trump's statement. At the same time, Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov reported that Ukrainian drones had tried to attack Putin's residence, but all of them were intercepted. No evidence or any verifiable proof for this incident was published or presented? Who would have thought? Zelensky immediately dismissed the claim as a lie. Despite the lack of evidence, Trump later publicly adopted the Russian version and repeated it in essence, without questioning or verifying it. This reveals a well-known Russian line of communication. Moscow tries to portray Ukraine as a disruptor of negotiations, while Russia itself appears to be the supposedly constructive side. This seems especially grotesque against the backdrop that Russia, almost without exception, launches massive airstrikes on Ukrainian cities, either before or during diplomatic meetings. This shows the exact opposite of de-escalation. The accusation of an attack on Putin's residence serves less to clarify a real event and more to set a political framework. It aims to undermine Ukraine's reliability, hinder negotiations, and legitimize their own escalation. Zelensky warned the day before that Russia would try to attack Ukrainian government buildings. Could this be their basis for doing so? The fact that this portrayal is being spread unchecked, not only by Trump, but also by other international actors, significantly amplifies its impact. In this context, it becomes clear that targeted disinformation is increasingly one of the last remaining effective tools for the Kremlin, not just on the battlefield, but also in politics and media. But wait, now of course a photo as evidence suddenly appears. Here we see Steven Seagal in front of an alleged impact site or an ordinary warehouse in Russia. It looks similar to the Dragon ramp, so it could have been anywhere. He's holding a piece of scrap or maybe a fragment of the drone in his hand. No one knows for sure. The Russians claim it's a drone fragment. So, if failed actors now have to stage themselves as evidence in front of a collapsed hall, then everyone should have realized by now that there is hardly any truth to this attack. Even Russia's Ministry of Defense. And now it gets really ridiculous, explaining the discrepancy with Lavrov's statements regarding the attack on the Novgorod residence. Most of the drones were allegedly shot down in neighboring regions far from the residence, and not at the residence itself. NTV also writes that, according to expert opinions, the attack was almost certainly a lie by Russia. Oh, really? I don't think you need to be an expert for that. But on the United States side, there are still some Republicans who aren't completely clueless. A ceasefire or peace doesn't become more likely if unsubstantiated Russian claims are accepted and spread without verification. Such narratives distort the assessment of the situation and undermine any solid basis for serious negotiations. And meanwhile, Europe is asleep again. Recently, I reported that the Russians have turned Donetsk airport into a launch platform for Shahed drones. Now, there are the first videos of Ukrainian drone attacks on the launch pads and drone depots at the airport. The Ukrainian attacks are clearly aimed not only at destroying individual drones, but at disrupting the entire operation, from storage to preparation to launch. Every hit on launch pads and depots delays operations, increases logistical efforts, and forces Russia either to relocate its infrastructure or to implement additional protective measures, which of course is expensive again, since they are then missing somewhere else. We again observe efforts to target Russian drone capabilities early in the action cycle before they launch. The same, of course, applies to all fighter jets that carry and drop glide bombs. Destroying them on the ground is still easier than in the air. There's another fire in Odesa. A recent Russian airstrike in the port likely struck an oil or fuel depot, but details are still scarce. Black smoke is visible, so something is burning, but I don't have more information yet. Thanks to all subscribers, channel members, and the Algo crew, especially Lieutenant Colonel Renicki, Robert Ziller, and Dietrich. Subscribe, like, comment, and see you in the next report.